So understandably, the pandemic has been a boon to the growth of virtual annual shareholder meetings. Virtually every company is holding one now. Many companies had to switch their in-person meetings to virtual on the fly last year. This year, they're going to have more time to prepare. So what should you disclose in your proxy about your virtual annual shareholder meeting today on Zippy Point?
Quick Zips by Zippy Point.
Quick and dirty. I'm Brock Romanek, and I'm a big fan of yous. So it may sound crazy, but the SEC doesn't have any rules or regulations that mandate what disclosures companies must make about how shareholders can attend their annual shareholder meeting. Companies take it upon themselves to include that disclosure, making the process orderly, and after all, it's only logical since shareholders need that information to know how to attend. But practices vary widely here. Some companies welcome attendance of shareholders when they were held in person. They even encourage it. Berkshire Hathaway drew 40,000 attendees in 2019. This is called the Woodstock of Capitalists. It's an entire weekend of events. My dad went a few years ago and brought me back this fancy hat. It's fancy. Walmart is another example of a company that turns their in-person meeting into a true event. They had 14,000 a couple of years ago, many of whom are employees, with pop stars playing live music. Pom-poms are handed out. It's a scene, man. This article refers to the Walmart meeting as a carnival. It's fun. On the other hand, many companies dread their annual meeting, not because anything bad necessarily is going to happen. In fact, it's the opposite. A whole lot of preparation for not much payoff. It's boring. For many companies, not many shareholders attend. That's just the way it is. Companies have been holding their annual meetings virtually for years, ever since Inforte broke the mold in 2001 when it held its meeting by fax. After Broadridge built a virtual shareholders meeting platform about 5 years ago, they became more popular. Now Broadridge has a few competitors. You have Computershare, Median, and I think Open Exchange. So what types of voluntary disclosures are companies making in their proxies to help shareholders understand how to attend these virtual shareholder meetings online? Here are 10 things. I'm going to rifle through this list. 1, why are we holding this meeting virtually? Well, it's for your safety. That's a good disclosure to make. It's a simple disclosure to make, and here's how Southern does it. Most of these examples are from the Southern company. They've got great disclosure about virtual meeting attendance in their proxy. 2, you need good Wi-Fi to attend, right? Another example from Southern. 3, give yourself time to log in. This is a good disclosure to make. Southern makes it because people sometimes have trouble logging in if they don't have a good internet connection, if they have trouble figuring out the system. 4, the virtual meeting should work on most browsers and types of computers, but update your software and plugins. Sounds logical, but it's good to have that disclosure like Southern does. 5, if you can't find your 16-digit control number, you can still attend as a guest. Now, of course, you can only make this disclosure if you have it set up so you can attend as a guest. And this is what the smart companies did last year. They allowed people to attend as a guest. They didn't use their control number. If they were a shareholder and couldn't figure it all out, at least they could get in. And of course, some people attended as a guest that weren't shareholders at all and wanted to check it out. 6, call us if you have technical problems. This is a great disclosure from Southern. It's good to have a help desk so that you can help people log in if they need the help. 7, how you can ask questions. So this is a great disclosure from Southern. This is an area where institutional investors and retail investors complained about the most last year, the transparency about the Q&A session. You can hear more about this if you listen to my couple of Vid-Guides about virtual shareholder meetings, a link to which are below with some special guests. But this is truly an area where I expect to see much more disclosure from more companies in 2021. 8, we might need to edit your question. Well, someone might send in a question that needs a little bit of editing. Maybe there's some profanity in it. Maybe there's some typos. The awkward sentence structure doesn't quite make sense. Whatever it is, you have the flexibility to edit it. You're giving people a heads up that you're going to do that if necessary. 9, we might need to group your question. Well, there might be a bunch of questions that are very similar, so that companies have the flexibility, if they make the disclosure here like Southern, that they're going to put a couple of different questions that are very similar together, combine them into one. And then here's a bonus disclosure from Microsoft about how we're going to be posting the Q&As that are related to our business after the meeting. This is a good disclosure to have. This is the kind of disclosure that investors want to see. Microsoft did a great job. They have the benefit of being later in the year. Their annual meeting was December 2nd, 2020, so they could see what investors were complaining about and make this kind of disclosure. 10, whether we expect to go back to being in person next year. Well, Southern made this disclosure earlier in 2020. I don't know if it's going to happen for 2021, but it's good if the board thinks they know what they want to do next year, assuming the pandemic is over. It's good to have that disclosure that whether the company has an intention or not, if they know whether they're going back to in-person. Some investors want to know. Some investors want to go back to in-person if possible. Some investors might not. They might like virtual. So as I mentioned, the Southern company really does cover the waterfront in their proxy about attending the virtual meeting. Kudos to them. I was able to cover all 10 of these points by just referring to their 2020 proxy. These disclosures were a section in the back of their proxy entitled FAQs about voting and the annual meeting. But don't forget, you also need to note in your notice in the front of the proxy that the meeting will be held virtually and not in person. That's another area where you're going to have a tweak to your disclosure. A few more comments. I like the way that General Motors formats their disclosure about attending their annual meeting with boxes. And they had a great virtual annual meeting, one of the best this year. And I note that some companies use proxy supplements to explain how to attend virtual meetings because they were doing it on the fly. Here's an example from Thomson Reuters. And then here's another example of that from Pfizer. So I have a few other Vid-Guides about 10 groovy things to disclose. One's about disclosure about voting in your proxy. Another is about attending the meeting in person, if we ever have that again. And of course, I have many other Vid-Guides about annual meetings in general. So go to zippypoint.com or search YouTube with the hashtags of #annual meetings and #zippypoint and enjoy. Let me know what you think.